Good day, Guardians. My name is Mythos Mike, and I'm a lore and universe contributor for Planet Destiny, appearing here in my first video. Today I'm going to talk a little more about the battles and conflicts that the city has been involved in, and how they impact the missions that your Guardian faces in the current state of Destiny. Now, to explain the timeline here, let me set up the events for you. Destiny's story is currently set in the 28th century, or the 2700s. However, the way the events are spelled out for us in the grimoire and in the events of the game just simply don't explain the exact dates and years of events. Now, to start off, the Battle of Six Fronts. Six Fronts occurred quite some time ago in the city's history, perhaps even up to centuries before the present time in which Destiny is set. Six Fronts was named as such because the Fallen surrounded the city on six sides, six approaches into the city as they attempted to retake their great machine, or as we know it, our Traveler. It's clear that the Devil Kell Sulcus was the leader of this attack on the city. Now, Six Fronts came as the first real test for the Guardian Orders, who were based at several towers around the city rather than the one that you find yourself in today. Evidence shows that the Titan Orders made up the bulk of the city's forces that day, but many Guardians supported in the defense. Now, there are names in the grimoire and on weapons and armor that you might be familiar with, like Saint 14, Scory, Radagast, Tamur, Fellwinter, and Osiris. All of these Guardians were present at the battle and helped Guardian Orders and the forces of the city push back the Fallen and send them on the retreat. While the details of Osiris's supposed heroics during Six Fronts aren't immediately shown to us, they were enough to earn him a position as the Warlock Vanguard, or in other words, a predecessor to our current Warlock Vanguard, Ikora Rey. Immediately following Six Fronts, he traveled to Mercury and was never heard from again. Knowing his background, this was probably because he was searching for more evidence to research into the Vex and their time-traveling abilities. Saint 14, on the other hand, was the Guardian responsible for putting down Sulcus, the Devil Kell, as I previously mentioned, and was heralded as a great hero in the city. However, the Speaker, who he refers to as his father, tasked him with hunting down Osiris and returning him to the city to answer for his research into the forces of the darkness, in other words, the Vex and the Hive. Saint 14, too, disappeared on Mercury and was never heard from and never made contact with the city again. The Tower officially considers him killed in action and actually held a last vigil or funeral for him. The next notable battle would come sometime later, perhaps even centuries after the Battle of Six Fronts, and we could be commanded by the Crucible Handler himself, Lord Shaxx. The location and details of the Battle of Burning Lake aren't currently available to us, but we do know that it was the first major skirmish, and possibly the second overall, against the Hive from Luna. While the first encounter against the Hive occurred in the Eastern Flood Zone, near the current Crucible map, the Rusted Lands, Shaxx commanded this battle specifically. While Shaxx's forces barely won this fight, it's really only notable for being the place at which Shaxx learned about the swords of the Hive Knights. The Battle of Mare Ibrium, or the Great Disaster, is the next battle I'm going to cover. It was quite possibly the largest defeat of forces opposed to the darkness since the collapse, and it might only be surpassed by the Battle of Saturn, where the Queen and her forces were defeated by Oryx's fleet. Emboldened by the victories at Six Fronts, Burning Lake, and other unmentioned skirmishes, the Vanguard and the Consensus formulated the first major offensive since the collapse. Crota emerged with his countless number of Hive Knights under his command and pushed out onto Luna. He and his brood would come to slay hundreds, if not thousands of Guardians, and make it impossible for their ghosts to revive them. The few Guardians that remained immediately retreated back to the city. The Consensus, Speaker, and Vanguard immediately terminated all official operations on Luna and declared cislunar space to be off-limits to Guardians unless in emergency situations. Actually, when your Guardian first arrives on Luna, they're not supposed to have any help from the Vanguard, which is why you're the only Guardian that you see on Luna at that specific time. It was during this battle of Mare Ibrium, or the Great Disaster, that the Exo-Warlock Ariana III tortured a captured Hive wizard and learned the identity of Crota and his intentions for our system. The Great Disaster and the Vanguard's failure drove her want for revenge, and it would lead her to her own disaster at the Hellmouth with Eris Morn, Toland, and the rest of that ill-fated fire team. This leads us up to the most recent battle in our city's memory, an infamous struggle that set the course for the vanguards and the city's future. While we do know the identity of the three houses that did participate in the battle, which includes the House of Devils, the House of Kings, and the House of Winter, the question is, who formed these forces to attack the city in a coordinated offensive? The Kings are the most prevalent hypothesis, being the schemers that they are, but it's not confirmed to us at this point. The largest fallen force ever assembled attacked us all at once and took the city's forces by surprise. Towers, portions of the wall, and outskirts of the city fell to the forces of the Elixir. Many Guardians were gunned down, protecting city gun emplacements that exchanged fire with spider tanks and fallen ground troops. Seeking to turn the tide of the battle, the commander of the city's forces, Lord Saladin Forge, or the current Iron Banner Master, sent his protégés, Lord Shax and Commander Zavala, to turn the tide of the battle. Shax's counterattack would prove to be the turning point in the conflict. Via joint efforts of Guardian fire teams, the tide of the battle would be broken and would send the fallen on their retreat. The gap would serve as a turning point in the city's history. The mythical rocket launcher, Gjallarhorn, would be constructed out of the remains of fallen Guardians' armor and weapons as well. This leads us up to the current state of the city and the awakening of your Guardian. That's all I have for you today, Guardians. This has been Mythos Mike for Planet Destiny, your guide to the Destiny universe.